Grace found the book by accident and it destroyed her entire afternoon. Monaco, November 1979. She'd been looking for something to read, something light and meaningless to fill the hours before another state dinner she didn't want to attend. The palace library was enormous, 2 floors of leather-bound volumes that no one ever touched except the staff who dusted them weekly. Grace wandered the shelves, running her fingers along spines, not really looking for anything specific, just procrastinating. That's when she saw it. A slim volume wedged between 2 architectural histories, completely out of place. She pulled it out and her breath caught. The Complete Plays of Tennessee Williams. She knew this book. She'd owned a copy once, in 1952, when she was 23 and desperate to be taken seriously as an actress. She'd studied Williams obsessively, dreaming of playing Blanche DuBois or Maggie the Cat, roles that would prove she was more than just a pretty face. She opened the book and found an inscription on the first page. To Grace, who will be brilliant in everything she does. Break legs and hearts. Love, Tennessee. The handwriting was unmistakable. Williams had given this to her after she'd auditioned for Summer and Smoke in New York. She hadn't gotten the role, but he'd encouraged her anyway, told her she had something special, told her to keep trying. Grace stared at the inscription until the words blurred. How had this book ended up here? She'd left everything from her acting days behind when she married Rainier, had packed up her New York apartment and donated most of her belongings to charity. Someone must have saved this book, sent it to Monaco thinking the princess would want a memento of her former life. But Grace had never seen it arrive. It had been shelved here in the library, forgotten, gathering dust for over 20 years. She carried the book to one of the leather chairs by the window and sat down. Outside, November rain fell on Monaco's perfectly manicured gardens. Grace opened to a streetcar named Desire and began to read. She knew the play by heart, had performed Blanche scenes alone in her apartment 1,000 times, had dreamed of playing her on Broadway. I have always depended on the kindness of strangers. The line hit her like a physical blow. She closed the book and pressed it against her chest, feeling something break inside her. She was 50 years old. She'd been Princess Grace of Monaco for 23 years. And she had never played Blanche DuBois. Would never play her. Would never stand on a stage again and transform into someone else, someone broken and beautiful and real. The rain intensified outside, battering the windows. Grace opened the book again and kept reading. Scene after scene, Blanche's desperation and delusion and desperate need to be desired, to be special, to matter. Grace understood it all. Every line resonated with her own life, her own fears, her own slow dissolution into irrelevance. She was 50 and invisible. Not literally, of course. People still looked at her, still photographed her, still wanted to meet Princess Grace. But they didn't see her. They saw the title, the image, the frozen photograph from 1956. The actual woman sitting in this chair reading Tennessee Williams was invisible to everyone, including herself, most days. When had she last felt seen? Really seen, the way audiences had seen her in Rear Window or The Country Girl? When had someone last looked at her and recognized Grace Kelly instead of Princess Grace? She turned the page and found another inscription, this one in her own handwriting from decades ago. Scribbled notes in the margins, ideas for how to play certain scenes, emotional beats she wanted to hit. Blanche is performing sanity while losing it. The performance is the tragedy. Grace stared at her own words written in 1952, 27 years ago, when she was young and hungry and still believed talent mattered more than beauty. She'd understood Blanche even then, had recognized the terror of losing yourself to performance, of becoming the role so completely you couldn't find your way back. But she'd written those notes as an observer, an actress studying a character. She hadn't understood she was writing about her own future. Grace stood abruptly and walked to the window, still clutching the book. The rain was coming down harder now, turning the gardens into a grey blur. She pressed her forehead against the cold glass and felt tears on her face. When was the last time she'd cried? Really cried, not the careful single tear she could produce for sad occasions. She couldn't remember. Princesses didn't cry. They endured with grace and dignity. They smiled through pain and disappointment and the slow death of every dream they'd ever had. Grace had been enduring for 23 years and she was so tired. So unbelievably tired of holding herself together, maintaining the performance, being the fairy tale. Behind her, the library door opened. "Your Highness. You're needed for the pre-dinner briefing." It was Michelle, Rainier's assistant, perpetually harried and efficient. Grace didn't turn around. "Tell them I'm not feeling well. I won't be attending dinner tonight." A pause. "But Your Highness, the Swedish ambassador specifically requested." "I don't care what he requested. I'm not going." Grace heard the sharpness in her own voice and didn't care. Let them think she was being difficult. Let them gossip about Princess Grace having a tantrum. She didn't have the energy to be gracious right now. Michelle retreated, closing the door softly. Grace knew there would be consequences. Rainier would be annoyed. The staff would whisper. Tomorrow's schedule would have an extra event added to make up for tonight's absence. But right now, holding Tennessee Williams in her hands, she couldn't make herself care. She returned to the chair and kept reading. The streetcar named Desire gave way to Cat on a Hot Tin Roof. Maggie the cat, desperate and sexual and fighting for her marriage, for her life, for any scrap of love or attention. Grace had dreamed of playing Maggie too. Had imagined herself in that white slip, prowling the stage, all that repressed desire and rage finally given permission to exist. But she'd been too busy being the Ice Queen, too controlled and contained to be trusted with passion. Hollywood had typecast her as cool and untouchable and she'd played along because it got her work. And then she'd married Rainier and become actually untouchable, a princess in a tower, decorative and distant. The light was fading outside. Grace realized she'd been reading for hours. She looked at her watch. 6:30. The state dinner was starting now, guests arriving, champagne being poured, everyone wondering where Princess Grace was. She should feel guilty. She should go apologize and make an appearance, smile and charm and be the gracious hostess Monaco expected. But instead she turned the page and kept reading. The glass menagerie now. Laura Wingfield, fragile and terrified, hiding from the world with her collection of glass animals. Grace understood Laura too. Understood the appeal of retreating into a safe, controlled environment where nothing could hurt you. Monaco was her glass menagerie. Beautiful and pristine and completely artificial. And just as fragile. One wrong move and everything shattered. A knock on the door. Grace ignored it. Another knock, more insistent. "Grace." Rainier's voice, tight with annoyance. She still didn't answer. The door opened and he came in, already in his formal wear for the dinner, medals and sash perfectly arranged. "What are you doing? We have guests waiting." Grace held up the book. Reading Tennessee Williams. "Did you know I wanted to be a serious actress once? That I dreamed of playing Blanche DuBois on Broadway?" Rainier looked confused. "That was a long time ago. You have responsibilities now." She laughed, a sound with no humor in it. "Yes. Responsibilities. 23 years of responsibilities. And what do I have to show for it? A title I never wanted and a life I don't recognize." Rainier's face hardened. "You're being irrational. This is about that actress dying, isn't it? Natalie, whatever her name was. You've been strange ever since." Grace stared at her husband. Natalie had died 5 years ago, but Rainier had never bothered to remember her name. Had never understood that Grace had lost someone important, had lost another reminder of who she used to be. "This isn't about Natalie. This is about me. About the fact that I'm 50 years old and I've spent half my life being someone I'm not. About the fact that I was a talented actress and I gave it all up to be a decorative princess who cuts ribbons and smiles for cameras and has no purpose beyond looking appropriate. You are Princess of Monaco. That is your purpose." Rainier said it like it explained everything. Like being a princess should be enough. Like Grace should be grateful for the cage he'd offered her. "It's not enough," Grace said quietly. "It's never been enough. But I was too scared to admit it. Too invested in the fairy tale to acknowledge it was a nightmare." Rainier stepped closer, his voice dropping to the dangerous calm he used when truly angry. "You will get dressed. You will come to dinner. You will apologize to our guests. And tomorrow we will discuss whether you need to see a doctor because clearly you're unwell." Grace looked at him, really looked at him. This man she'd married 23 years ago, believing he would save her from Hollywood's pressures. This man who'd turned out to be just another person who wanted her to perform, to be perfect, to disappear into a role. "I'm not unwell. I'm awake. Maybe for the first time in decades." She stood, still holding the Williams plays. "I'm not going to dinner. I'm going to stay here and finish this book. And tomorrow I'm going to start asking myself what I want. Not what Monaco wants. Not what you want. What I want." She walked past him toward the door. Rainier grabbed her arm. "Grace, think about what you're doing. The scandal. The children. Your reputation." She pulled free. "I've spent 23 years thinking about everyone else. Tonight I'm thinking about me." She left the library and walked through the palace corridors, still in her day clothes, still holding the book, ignoring the startled looks from staff members. She could hear music and conversation drifting from the state dining room where important people were gathering to celebrate something meaningless. Let them celebrate without her. Let Rainier make excuses. Let Monaco be scandalized. Grace was done performing. At least for tonight. She went to her private rooms and locked the door. Then she ran a bath, poured herself a glass of wine, and got back into the Tennessee Williams. The night of the iguana now. Hannah Jelkes, the traveling artist, broke and desperate but still fighting, still creating, still trying to find meaning in a meaningless world. Grace sank into the hot water and kept reading. The words blurred occasionally as tears fell, but she didn't stop. She read every play in the collection, hours passing unmarked. She read about desperate women and broken men and the lies people told themselves to survive. She read about performance and authenticity and the unbearable weight of being human. And with each page, she felt something shift inside her. Not healing exactly. More like acknowledgement. Recognition. She'd spent 23 years pretending she was fine with her choices, pretending Princess Grace was fulfilling, pretending the sacrifice had been worth it. But Tennessee Williams understood. He'd written about people like her. People who performed survival so well they forgot they were dying inside. When she finally set down the book, it was after midnight. The palace was quiet. The state dinner was over, guests gone home, staff cleaning up the remnants of an evening Grace hadn't attended. She got out of the bath and wrapped herself in a robe. Her skin was wrinkled from hours in hot water, but she felt cleaner than she had in years. Like she'd washed off some of the performance, some of the pretense. She looked at herself in the bathroom mirror. 50 years old. No makeup. Hair wet and unstyled. She looked tired and human and real. Not Princess Grace. Just Grace. And for the first time in a very long time, she didn't hate what she saw. She picked up the Tennessee Williams book and held it like a talisman. Tomorrow there would be consequences. Rainier would be furious. The staff would be scandalized. There would be meetings and apologies and probably punishment in the form of extra obligations. But tonight she'd chosen herself. Tonight she'd read plays instead of attending a meaningless dinner. Tonight she'd remembered that Grace Kelly had dreams once, had wanted to be Blanche and Maggie and Laura. And even though those dreams were dead, even though she would never play those roles, knowing she'd wanted them mattered. It meant that underneath Princess Grace, Grace Kelly still existed. Buried and suffocating but not completely dead. Grace went to her bedroom and put the book on her nightstand where she could see it every morning. A reminder. A rebellion. Evidence that she'd once been someone who wanted things, who dreamed of stages and scripts and transformation. She got into bed and stared at the ceiling. Tomorrow she would have to be Princess Grace again. Would have to apologize and smile and return to the performance. But tonight she'd been Grace Kelly. Tonight she'd read Tennessee Williams and cried and refused to perform. And that one night, that small rebellion, might have to sustain her for years. Because change wasn't coming. Monaco wasn't going to suddenly free her. Rainier wasn't going to understand. The cage would remain locked. But now she knew it was a cage. Now she'd admitted it. And that awareness, painful as it was, felt like the first honest thing she'd experienced in decades. She thought about Blanche's final line. I have always depended on the kindness of strangers. Grace had depended on the kindness of strangers too. Had married a stranger, lived in a strange country, performed for strange audiences. And it had destroyed her as surely as it had destroyed Blanche. But Blanche got to be tragic. Blanche got to break down and be carried away. Grace had to keep performing stability, keep pretending everything was fine, keep being the perfect princess until she died. There would be no breakdown, no dramatic exit. Just years and years of quiet suffocation punctuated by small rebellions like tonight. The book sat on her nightstand, spine facing out. The complete plays of Tennessee Williams. Grace reached over and touched it one more time before turning out the light. Tennessee had written "break legs and hearts" in his inscription. She'd broken hearts, including her own. But she'd never gotten to break a leg. Never gotten to take a bow. Never gotten to hear applause that was meant for her performance rather than her title. But she'd had one night. One night of reading plays and remembering who she used to be. One night of choosing herself over obligations. One night of being Grace Kelly in a palace full of Princess Grace. It wasn't a career. It wasn't Broadway. It wasn't the life she'd dreamed of. But it was something. A crack in the performance. A breath of truth in a life of lies. And tomorrow, when she had to be Princess Grace again, she would carry this night with her. This small act of rebellion. This quiet acknowledgement that somewhere inside the perfect princess, Grace Kelly was still screaming to be heard. Still wanting to play Blanche. Still dreaming of a stage she would never stand on again. The book would stay on her nightstand. A reminder of who she'd been. A promise that she could survive being who she'd become. And maybe, just maybe, a small flame of hope that it wasn't too late to want something more than survival. Even if she never got it. Even if wanting was all she had left. Even if the wanting itself was a kind of death. At least it was honest. At least it was real. At least, for one night in November 1979, Grace Kelly had read Tennessee Williams and remembered what it felt like to dream.